In this video, I am going to discuss about Oracle database interview question for L1 and L2 DBA, and especially this this is the second continuation video of Oracle database interview question. In this, I'll be going to discuss some most important question that as a DBA it will be a mandatory question that you should be aware of it, so that it will be easy for you to answer during the interview. So like on the basis of my personal 8-9 year of experience on a database profile, what I have observed, like in interview there is a very common question interviewer may ask to know you, how good you are about your profile, and what exactly you are doing on a day to day routine work as a DBA. So for knowing your capability, they always try to ask this kind of question about your project and what's your daily routine, what kind of job you do on a daily basis. So for that you should be very much aware of the Oracle DBA main responsibility, so that while answering you should not get diverted from the topic that you are considering. You are covering all the important points that as a DBA you should be answering it. So here, my first question is related to that only, like what would be the main responsibility of a DBA in an organization. Even you when you go to any bridge call and you are joining as a DBA resource to that call, and if you are not aware of your responsibility, then for any issue they can involve you and they will ask you to work. So in that case also you should be aware of your responsibility, so that if you are going in a any P1 or P2 ticket problem where they are opening a bridge and all of a sudden they are involving to do a debugging to identify the root cause. So for those situations also, if you are aware of your DBA responsibility, you will be able to save you, and even you will be able to save your team from the escalation. So for multiple perspective, you it's very important to know your responsibility as a DBA. So the main responsibility of an Oracle DBA is to keep the database up and running in your organization. This may involve installation and configuration from the scratch. Like from scratch you should be able to do the installation, configuration, setting up the database, and next, on the running system, the DBA will be only privileged person who can shut down and start up the database. So as a DBA you have a full control on a database with a sys privilege. So whenever any schedule activity is going to happen, they will ask you to shut down the database in a particular time window. So for performing any activity or schedule change during that time window scheduled window, so that time you have to do this activity to doing a shutdown of a database and starting a database and setting up. So this kind of things, it will be a regular job for a DBA. Next is the DBA will create a new user and manage the privilege of a user. So yes, as a DBA you have a full control on database, so you will decide which end user required what level of privilege and what privilege you need to assign to that user. That as a DBA you are going to manage it, and you will be your team and your you has to make a decision and decide like what level of that user need. Like if that user belongs to application team, so what level of access that user is required, like that much level of access you have to provide to access it through SQL developer or through putty or from any end user application. If they wanted to access a database to do some execution, to fetch some report or run some SQL, so for those you have to identify the privilege, like how much privilege is required for that user. So the next is he DBA means he will take a regular backup to ensure the database is safe in case of disaster. He will be responsible for restoring the database from backup. So yes, as a DBA, it's your responsibility to schedule a job through crontab or through any scheduler. You have to schedule your backup. That should be with some retention period, like on weekly basis, monthly basis, in 15 days tenure. Some retention period you have to set for your database backup, and you have to keep doing that backup with a full consistency, so that your database will, in case of any disaster, in case if somebody has deleted something from your database, or like your team member, somebody has done some mistake and due to that something got wrong, so in that case your backup will be the area from where you can restore your database. So this is a DBA responsibility. You cannot deny for restoring your database if you have a backup set configured on your database label. Basically, we configure for production environment. So this is a complete DBA job, DBA responsibility. Next is he will have to do a monitoring of space usage and do a capability planning for the database. Means as a DBA, you have to schedule a script through contab, so that for any for monitoring your environment, like if any space alert is coming, if any table space is getting full, any data file is needs to be added, so those kind of thing for your services, like listener is getting down or database is getting down, so for everything you have to configure a alert system, so that you will keep getting a alert, and on that basis you have to take a proactive action, so that you can make your environment completely ready with any some this kind of abnormalities that can impact your database performance, and it can stop your database for 100% smooth running. So that is also your responsibility, and he will be responsible for ensuring a security policy. He will have to monitor a database activity. He will have to have to in tune the database, so that it will work and acceptable speed. So obviously, as a DBA, your primary job is to do a performance tuning related stuff, because administrative tasks are now getting more automated. So in that case, as a DBA, your primary job will be to work on a database performance optimization, where you will be responsible for making a database more smooth to access it, and you have to make the database more secure, and you have to do performance tuning related stuff to kill the blocking sessions, do the query analysis for any performance issue, if it is coming, if somebody is reporting these objects are getting blocked, so you have to kill those objects. So this kind of activities you might have get on regular basis. That is completely a DBA job responsibility, and also he is expected to follow up the latest patch and apply them when applicable. So yes, as a DBA, it's your responsibility to decide which patch needs to be applied to your environment, that you have to keep checking for your database, so that your database will be updated with the latest patch, and your database will be more secure with the bug, and you no need to put extra effort for recovering your database, because you will be applying your patches on an applicable time period. So that is also a complete DBA responsibility. So these are the things that you have to tell whenever your interviewer is asking you, like if he's asking what regular routine work do you do as a DBA, so you have to tell these all things. And also, like multiple activities also you can involve with this, and like you are doing upgrade related stuff, database upgrade, patching, performance tuning, and other stuff also you have to keep adding if we interviewer is still ask more. So yeah, this is the way to answer this question. Next is, how does Oracle DBA how does a Oracle DBA role different from the Oracle developer role in an organization? Are there any similarity between these two? Yes, this question is also equally important, because here every organization have a developer and administrator both. So if you are working with them, so there should be a very clear line boundary for your DBA work and Oracle developer work, like what's their role, what they have to do, and what you have to do as a DBA. So once you will be clear on that part, it will be easy for you to clarify them if something they are assigning to you and you are not aware of it. So if you are knowing your responsibility, you can easily tell them that this is not my job, it should be belongs to your team, or it's related to a developer, so developer has to handle it. And you can save yourself also for getting any escalation, because you are knowing your roles and responsibility. So here it's mentioned like an Oracle developer is is mainly responsible for developing a backend application. They do data modeling according to the business rules, the design tables, create index and other type of constant. They are expected to know SQL and PLSQL. They develop a procedure using this language. However, the Oracle developers are not expected to administer administrated the database software itself. Yes, it's not administration is not a developer work. Administration work is completely a DBA role, but our thing are related to a developer. And in another hand, Oracle DBA mainly main duty is to do administrators the administrator the database, which involves a task like doing maintenance of, to keep the database up and running, taking a backup, enforcing a security policies, etc. DBAs are not primarily assigned to develop a code. Yes, DBA responsibility is not as a primary role to do a development or coding related stuff. DBA are supposed to have a good knowledge of SQL and PLSQL. Obviously, as a DBA, you need to work on SQL and PLSQL for doing scripting and all. For doing some automation related work, you should be aware of SQL and PLSQL, because as a DBA, you should be aware of these things so that you can easily coordinate with a developer to work with them. So here it's like developer, as they are required for administrating the database according to the structure of the organization. DBA might also be assigned for development tasks, or at least assigned for developers where necessary. So for working with the development team or developers, DBA also has to get sync up with them so that they can understand your job and you can understand their job and their necessity where they need your help. You can easily get sync up once you will have a SQL and PLSQL understanding. So that is the reason you also need to know SQL and PLSQL. So this is the difference between both of them. Like they are working on object level, you are working on a administrative related tasks. So basic difference is this. So on that basis, you have to answer if somebody is asking same question. They are The next is, there are 10 identical servers and you wanted to install Oracle database on each of them. What would you use to automate the installation process? So it's very simple. Like if you have a multiple machines, especially in the retail side, like if you have so many machines, like and you wanted to install the database on every machine, then manually it's not possible to do it on thousands of machines. So in that case, you have to go with a response file method to through a batch file method. So for that, you have to plan accordingly. Like you have to go for silent installation method, or if there is a less number of machine, you can go with an interactive mode of installation method also. So here, if you are going to do a batch installation, it is best to do it with Oracle Universal Installer with a silent mode. So here it's mentioned very clearly, like if you are going with a multiple machines, multiple server installation for the same Oracle database, then you have to create a batch file, and with that batch file you have to go for installation with a Oracle Universal Installer in a silent mode, where you no need to give each and every step, you no need to provide manually. It will in one go it will get started. For single installation, it is best to start with an installer in an interactive mode and set the installation option at each window. However, in batch installation, they will take longer. You need to do installation in a silent mode with a response file. In a silent installation, you start the Oracle Universal Installer from the command prompt and specify the location of a response file. The installation file and the response file can be separate amongst the server, via NFS, so that you would not have to copy a steps files to each server. Yes, correct. So that's the way we have to do it. Like if machines are less, then you have to go with a interactive mode. If machines are more, then you have to go with a batch file or response file method, where you have to do a silent installation. That will, once you have to launch it from the command prompt by giving a path and batch file location, and then it will get started. Which tool you can use to start the Oracle database? So for starting Oracle database, the most commonly used is SQL plus. This is the most commonly used option. You first connect to the ideal instance with the SQL plus, and then start up the instance with the startup command. That is a most commonly used option. This is the way as a DB you also have to work. And also parallelly you have option of Oracle Enterprise Manager, like OEM. OEM is also a utility of Oracle that will give you a dashboard where from where you can access everything. This is another way of starting up the database. You can log on to the OEM. Even if the database is stop, OEM will detect the status of the database, down database, and will present you the startup button. You can start up the database by clicking that button. Yeah, that is the second option, but generally as a DBA it's not good practice to go with that. Better you can use a command prompt, so that you will get a good hands-on practice, and that will make you a good DBA. So the next is Arman. Arman is rather a less used tool for starting up the database, but it is possible to start up the database from the recovery manager command line as well. But yes, better you should go with a SQL plus. So three options are there. And the next is explain the difference between the shared server architecture and dedicated server architecture. So here the answer is, when a user connect to a database, he spend a SQL query to the database to execute. The SQL queries are executed by a server process, and the result is turned to a user. And in dedicated server, the architecture, the instance will create one server process for each connected user. The process will be dedicated to the user and will only serve the client. However, in shared server architecture, a single server process will share to a multiple client. In shared server architecture, the total memory consumption will be less. However, concept certain operations like DB activities can only be performed with a dedicated server. So here the by default is shared server when you do a by default installation, but you can go with a dedicated server option also, where every instance, every user connection will have their own dedicated user process, server process. And in shared server process, multiple client will able to access the same shared server process. So that is the basic difference between both. Now the next question is when you want to do a maintenance of your database, but during the maintenance period you don't want any user to be able to connect to the database, how would you accomplish this? Yeah, this is also a very important question you might get in your interviews. Interviewer may ask you this question, like you wanted to perform a maintenance activity and you don't want others to access this. So in that case, what you have to do as a DBA, when a database is open, any user with a create session privilege can connect to the database, can make a connection. However, it is possible to open a database in a restricted mode. Yes, you can open a database in a restricted mode. When a database is open in a restricted mode, only user with a restricted session privilege can make a connection to the database. So by default, only DBA have the restricted session privilege and it should not guaranteed to the regular users. Yes. So as a DBA, when the database will open in a restricted mode, that time only a DBA administrators can access the database. During that time, normal user cannot access because they don't have create session privilege assigned to their user, to their user ID. Yeah, opening a database in restricted mode is a good way to prevent a regular user from accessing the database during the maintenance. Yes. So next is your database is open. You don't want to interrupt currently connected user, but you want to temporarily disabled for the login. Okay. And what would you do to achieve this? How would you revert back database into a normal mode? For this you have to uh, disable a restricted session. With that means you have to uh, enable the restricted session so that your others cannot log in. So for that I would put the database in restricted mode, while the while in a restricted mode only user with a restricted session privilege can make the connection. It's the same thing in the previous question also, it was the same. I would run the below command to put the database in restricted mode. So this is the command that you have to use to put the database in restricted mode. Alter system enable restricted session. After executing this command, regular user would not able to log in the database. Once the database is revert to a normal, I would execute this command. Yes, for making this database base again to the normal, you have to execute alter system disable restricted session. So this is the two command you have to keep in mind for making a database restricted session, restricted mode, and making the database disable that restricted session. So next is uh, you want your database to start automatically after reboot the server. How would you do that? So obviously after restarting your server, your database go into a shutdown mode, and then automatically it won't come without setting some particular configurations. So we'll see what configuration you need to set. So this question also you might get in your interview. In the default configuration, Oracle database will not automatically start after the server reboot. Yes, you always keep in mind, due to any reason, if your server is getting rebooted, then you have to do a sanity check and validate whether your database is up and running or not. If you have done this setup through a script or through OHAS, through Oracle restart system, then your database will come up. Otherwise, you have to set through scripting. So there are two methods. So we'll be discussing that. So you will usually want to start a database automatically. There are two methods accomplished using Oracle Restart. Oracle Restart is the first method that will be used. Is a feature of Oracle High Availability Service like OHAS. It's a rack system environment. You need to install a grid infrastructure to enable the Oracle Restart feature. Using Oracle Restart feature is a recommended way actually. So by this way also, if you enable if you use this feature, then your database will come up automatically after the server restart, server reboot. And also the next option is by using your uh, own script. It is also possible to use to write your own batch script to start the database and place the script in a startup of the operating system. Yeah, that option is also there. And the same thing, even you can do it through, if you are using a window machine, then you by using a registry. In registry there is a auto restart service option that you have to make it true. So by setting that in window also, you can make your database once you reboot your operating system. After that, your database will come up if you set that registry value. So that is the third, I can say you can use that if your machine is window. So next is why is the index used. Index is basically a technique that helps in reducing the search time of a database query, and it helps in faster accessing a database. So yes, indexing is a option that is getting created on a table level. Like if your table is big and you don't want to use that table, that is consuming a lot of time for execution, then in that case you can go with the indexing option. You can as per your need, like if you are looking for some particular column data from the table or a row, then you can go with the specific column to create that index. And with that selective data, if you in place of table, if you use that index, your scan time will get reduced and your performance will get improved, your query performance will get improved, and you will be able to access the database faster. Like your query will able to access the data faster. So next is the last question is difference between view and materialized view in Oracle. In Oracle, both are getting used. So view, first we'll see. View is a logical structure of a table which will be used to retrieve the data from one or more table. So that is called view. And materialized views are also a logical structure, but data is physically stored into the database. So here the difference is view is logical structure of a table which is being used to retrieve the data from one or more table. Means the data is coming from table or multiple table, and that is not having any physical existence. But materialized view have a physical existence, and the data is directly coming from that physical storage from the database. And the next is data access is slow as compared to materialized views. Obviously, like it's coming through the table, so the scan time will increase, so it will be a slow. And data access is fast as compared to a simple view, because the data is directly accessed from the physical location. Obviously, materialized view have their physical existence on a database, so it will get directly accessed from that, so it will be fast as compared to a view. So views are generally used to restrict the data from the database. Yes, like if you need some particular area of data, you instead of going to a complete table, you go with a view where you will go with a selective area. So that is the reason we are saying it's restricting a database. And materialized views are used in a data warehouse. So that's it for this whole session. Thanks for watching till here.